My opinion is that everyone's guilty. We all know that everyone's guilty. In Hungarian, we say the coin has two sides. And we can't just look on one side of the coin.
If you understand what the victorious powers wanted from these treaties, then it becomes some sort of understandable.
I'm trying to forget the whole history thing, and I try to put myself into place. Okay, what would I really do if I would be in this position? And I try to get out of it. The hardest thing is that you know how history went and you know what happened, so it's really hard to take a totally different position in it, but I'm trying to because that's much more fun.
It's very interesting, particularly on the whole racial definitions, the territories, which is going to be one of our biggest issues.
What we're doing here is, in a way, it's a premiere. It's one of our first historical simulation games. That is a simulation game on a negotiation that happened in the past.
It's absolutely clear that the solution and the lection from this 4 years is that we need a stable and secure peace for Europe, which is a stable and secure peace for the world, and we have to build here together a new world order.
We organized innovative formats, and not only speeches, not only conservative discussions. We organized workshops with simulation games, with theater, with gaming workshops, to have point of special use culture.
It's important to analyze and to look back in order to understand our present situation.
A historian said once the Treaty of Versailles was too harsh to get Germany as a friend, and it was too weak to break Germany up and not preventing a new war. It's sort of sad, of course, but it's history, and we can only learn from it.
In the spring of 2013, the Berlin History Campus was held in the German capital to commemorate the 100th year anniversary of the start of the First World War. Students from all over Europe arrived to meet, discuss, and revisit the war that ushered in the modern age. One of the key events of the campus was held at the Collegium Hungaricum Berlin, where a select group of university students were challenged to do something never before attempted: to renegotiate the peace treaties of 1919.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Roger Daltrey of the British Broadcasting Corporation, and I am reporting live from Paris in France, where we are witnessing one of the biggest peace conferences in human history. In fact, the biggest peace conference of all human history. We come from different countries, different European countries, and none of you will play their own countries.
So the first part, when the participants will negotiate the real peace negotiations with the real positions of the different countries that were part of these negotiations.
As I told you before, we'll play a simulation game, although that's not entirely true. We will play, in fact, 2 simulation games, or we will play the same simulation game twice, but under different conditions. The first one will be the actual negotiations of the Parisian peace treaties. The idea is that you actually you will get a lot of information on the interests of the countries that you will represent in the different treaty negotiations, and you will be asked to represent these interests in the best way you can.
So we start with the Austrian delegation, and they will be played by Anna Maria Lungu and Milan Kristic.
Heading the workshop is the team of Planpolitik, specialists in role-playing and simulation games. After laying down the ground rules, each delegation was briefed about their country's positions and goals, and given time to build their strategies. In round 1, the participants must abide to the same rules as in the original peace treaty negotiations. The First World War from 1914 to 1918 was the first total war of the modern age. Altogether, far more than half of all states in existence at the time took part in the war, which therefore reached a global level and is often called the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. It ended in November 1918 with the defeat of the Central Powers and after the deaths of up to 15 million people. From January 1919 to January 1920, the involved states negotiated the conditions of peace at the Paris Peace Conference.
I have with me the distinguished gentleman, the French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau. Monsieur Clemenceau, what are your expectations for the conference?
Well, my main expectation is to have discussions in a cordial atmosphere, but also I think that the most important to us in France is that justice is served here, and those who were responsible for starting this war will have to be taken to responsibility for their actions.
I think we have to make an overview about our demands and our positions during this conference. So, first chapter is clear. Central powers are guilty of starting this war because of aggression. And because of this guilt, they have to pay.
So we have the possibility either to prevent a new war by breaking Germany or to be much more generous towards Germany. As a German, I would say, let's be generous, let's try to be partner, also as a European, of course, because I think that finding a common solution with all partners is the best way to solve a conflict, but I also know that the British would have decided otherwise.
We should make that clear that we are the ruler of the world. I was born in Romania, in Transylvania, and when I was 5 I moved to Hungary, so I do know what the people feel there. It was quite harsh for me to play now against Hungary. Sure, I did everything. I tried to act like a good actor.
If we give the Americans the full recognition of the right of self-determination, we are only going to lose in the long term, in the long run.
Yeah, but against the Americans we have the cards in our hands because we will pay them or we won't pay them. That's the question. And if they don't support us, we can just say, okay, and do you want your money back or not?
I'm playing German-Austria, actually, so completely opposite side than my national side. But that's the point of the game, I suppose. I tried as much as I can to be convincing and to somehow find good arguments to defend my positions. Regarding my personal view, some of the views that I had to support, personally, I do not support.
On behalf of the delegation of German-Austria, I would firstly like to ask you one question. What do you consider as reparations? Do you consider that reparations are instrument of helping to the destroyed regions and to the people that had some casualties during the war and fixing the consequences of the war on one hand, or are they actually a punishment, an instrument of the punishment on the other hand?
We are not interested in having a Germany that's too strong, because that would upset the balance of Europe and another war would start, so we think Germany should be divided to some extent.
I think it's a difficult role because you have to both chair the conference and represent the interests of your own country, and it's kind of weird because I think, you know, it's an awkward position because you want to be neutral on the one hand, but on the other hand, you also want to represent the interests of your country as well as you can.
And we just don't want the history to happen again, the war to happen again, because we are the country.
We don't want to have a too strong Germany, because it's a real threat, and it has been shown in the last century. We were attacked twice by Germany, and this is what we want to avoid in any case. And so this is what the treaty is about.
There are a lot of questions we have to talk about during the next days and this conference, but the main question is, firstly, and we will discuss this in plenary together, who is guilty for starting this war, this terrible and costly great war?
I would just like to remind you of the two main reasons for the start of the war, namely the Austrian aggression concerning Serbia and the German aggression against France. So I would like to also remind you of the cost of this war in terms of human lives on a European level, with 10 million soldiers killed and twice as many wounded. The main victim of the aggression coming from the German side was, of course, France.
Should
give us at least the chance to become a developed country again, so we can either pay the debts back you ask from us, or that we can form a buffer zone for you against Russia. Of course, we cannot ask this from you, and we are at the mercy which...
Mr. Churchill, you said that if we do not accept that we are guilty, we will all die. And then you say that Austria has a harsh ultimatums. Thank you very much.
You decide that. But what kind of guilt is that if we cannot even recognize it? Even if you all say, like, okay, Germany was guilty, you want to hear it from us, right? That we say, okay, we were guilty.
Though I have to say that your remarks regarding the emotional nature of our opening statements are somewhat absurd.
I was aggressive.
Are you enjoying this room?
Yes. Yeah, maybe a bit more than I should, yeah.
Fellow delegates, please be advised. Hungary is not Austro-Hungarian. The decision to attack Serbia came from Vienna. Europe has suffered great losses, but no other nation suffered more than Hungary. Our economy is crippled. 1 in 4
have to, support a lot of arguments which are actually in conflict with my own personal identity as a Romanian. For example, we had the issue on Transylvania, which was a huge debate.
Transylvania was kidnapped from Romania. Was taken from Romania. Yeah. This is not the case. Yeah. The fact is, it breaks my heart because I'm a Romanian. So.
So we're in quite a difficult position because we are the losers. However, we're also the aggressors. And so we are the ones who started this whole conflict off.
The first spark in this world fire came from...
The losing powers of Austria, Hungary and Germany are allowed to attend the conference but do not have a right to vote.
Justify your actions in front of us, but not only in front of us, but in front of the world. And in front of the world, you will have to confess your guilt.
And I think that the world now demands from us, from the victors of the World War I, a uniform position.
We have all suffered enough, and we want to get out of this as quickly as possible. One day that might come back to hit you, and we may rethink what's going on around this table. Remember, peace without victory is the only way we can create a stable Europe.
And by taking responsibility, Madam Representative.
Well, why has war got to be tied to reparations, got to be tied to Zion? You're making this all about humiliation. It does not need to be that way.
But soon tensions also arise among the victorious powers. The Americans have come into this conference with idealistic hopes of forging a lasting peace, and their agenda is to gain support for Woodrow Wilson's 14 points.
Our main goal is to achieve a sustainable peace in Europe, and we think it's only possible to have this with a functioning democracy Germany.
Woodrow Wilson was the idealist president, and then he's confronted with a Europe in which all the nationalities are entangled and the situation is really, really complex on the ground. And you don't really get that far with these abstract principles.
If we want to treat Germany as a partner, then we have to ally with the United States and to make the Italians go by our side. So we have 3 victorious powers against the French, trying to isolate them. Or if the United Kingdom should decide that we try the second solution, like breaking Germany, then we'll take the Italians and go side by side with the French and break Germany. Then we'll have to deal with the United States and convince them. That's the question.
As the individual negotiations of Saint-Germain, Versailles and Trianon get underway, the issues of losses, reparations, disarmament and national borders are argued.
The whole Europe must be disarmed and the national armies should be reduced.
Let's make it very clear. We don't want any wars anymore. So there will be no...
We also don't want any wars.
Therefore,
we need the military to maintain our sovereignty. The restriction of heavy arms, I think, would be the good starting point. But at the same time, with the communists on the rise, we will have enough power to fight back if anything happens. We of course have the 15% of payments to the US, to the fallen soldiers and the victims of it. We are willing to give away this 15% to 5% to England, 5% to France, 5% to Italy. But then you have to promise us you will disarm your armaments, you disarm your army to a level when it's only there for defending your own country.
I mean, after all, Italy only suffered $12.3 billion, whereas the UK suffered 44.
You are obviously getting more money from Germany.
In Versailles Council, we agreed that the German army will be stable, will consist of 150,000 men. So actually, if something is going to happen in Russia, we are the ones right now making decisions on Germany, so we can use the German army then to defend ourselves against the big Russia.
As strong as we are the United States of America, we are the world's police agent.
We won't give East Prussia to Germany. There are 90% Germans living there.
After a tough first round of negotiating, time has run out. The terms of each treaty are presented by the Allied powers. These results are similar to the dictated peace of the original conference.
Chapter 1, recording war guilt. Austria, Hungary, Germany and their allies are solely responsible for the start of the Great War.
Galicia must be part of Poland.
Alsace-Lorraine will go to France.
Germany will pay reparations for the civilian damage caused in the war. I will give the opportunity to the German delegation to make a statement.
We have nothing on it. Yeah, it's quite a tough position because Germany obviously lost the war and is actually now being humiliated by the other forces. And we are just trying to make the best of it and trying to lose as least as possible, which is really hard, but we're trying to.
In terms of the process, it comes quite close to reality. One example being the role of the Central Powers in the negotiations. It changed between frustration, sometimes sarcasm, because they realized they were just not being asked. They provided their arguments, their points of view, and again it was just the Allies deciding on everything between themselves in informal discussions between the Allied powers, and then it was presented to the defeated, and that is very accurate in terms of the real negotiations.
For the second round of the renegotiation, a new scenario was revealed. It is 1 year after the first treaty conference, and Europe is on the brink of war again. The delegations have convened once again to renegotiate the peace treaties in an attempt to hammer out a lasting peace. Most importantly, the Central Powers have been granted the right to vote.
It is really useful to renegotiate the whole treaty session and the negotiations in order to see where was maybe some space to find a compromise which was not seen in that time.
No one can afford the outbreak of a new war right now, so peace will be the ultimate goal.
I have with me Woodrow Wilson, the President of the New World, of the United States of America, the beacon of freedom. Mr. Wilson, what are your expectations for this biggest peace conference in human history?
First of all, we want that such a catastrophe like this great war will never happen again and will never be possible again on European ground.
Once again, after 1 year, we are back at Paris, trying to find a new solution for all problems, trying to make peace after 4 years of war. And while we are doing that, we are all staring into the abyss of having to go back to war, of having a Europe that still doesn't come back to peace.
The question is, we don't have any guarantee that Germany will accept the rules or the laws of this League of Nations. That's the main problem.
We have to make countries if we have to accept that these countries are economically dependent on each other, and then if there is economic cooperation and we have more joint interests than in the past.
We can be very, 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 very crazy, and we can just put all military forces together in one military of League of Nations.
We want to build a confederation. Okay. Here, a regional confederation. So Hungary, Romania, in which Transylvania, let's say, is going to be divided in in between Hungary and Romania. My plan for Hungary is to propose to create a Danubian federation, so a new republic on a federal basis, which would include not only Hungarians but also Romania and the countries that formed Yugoslavia.
We decided that we have 3 different negotiations at 3 different councils, and we decided that we would keep in contact with each other, and I told my delegation that whenever they would run into a problem, they would come to me and we would try to play out the 2 councils against each other.
We agree that there will be no universal disarmament.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God, man.
Yes.
Caused a lot of drama on a point that was not really so important to us, and then we compromised on the fact that the US would not strive for universal disarmament in Europe.
Maybe I can shortly explain why I wanted to talk to you, because the US has made an offer we actually can't refuse. The US has offered that every European country that has any debt at the United States of America will not have to pay back that debt. So they only, if under 2 conditions, the first condition is that we will establish a union within Europe, and then in that union we will make trade agreements with each other.
We are not very comfortable about this meeting, and we don't really approve this kind of discussions. It's so that you know, and we have a very generous offer at the table, so please think about that when you are talking in this room.
You will have to pay your debt to back.
Yes, but as I recall, the French Prime Minister wasn't so against the idea of accepting the American offer.
Please, if you are talking to each other, to others, then come to us and tell us too what you are talking, because I didn't even know about this American proposal.
So the UK is present.
Well, the UK is present. Discuss about the relation between UK and Italy.
Italy. Come here, someone get French.
It wasn't really time to have a separate meeting. They started by sending notes, and we took the paper to the other room and went back and forth between the different delegations. And then at some point they left their rooms and went to the other room and talked to their colleagues as well. But that's they came up with that by themselves. But it makes sense, and that happens in reality a lot as well.
This offers the relief of all debts of the UK, France and Italy in exchange for the Central Powers joining the League of Nations, an European Conference on a tax union and trade liberalization, and no forced financial provisions by the Central Powers towards the victory
space. Maybe we shall proceed with our debates in our countries.
I would first like to guarantee that you accept this.
Nation in Europe should have the right to self-determine its destiny. As we have seen in the last year with rising nationalist movements and a great deal of problems and the danger of civil war rising around Europe.
France agrees on the importance of the principle of self-determination as a general principle. However, we would also like to mention that political balance as an accompanying principle is equally important to us.
One question to the Italian delegation. In one of the other rooms, they are talking about regions like Istria and South Tyrol and other territorial provisions Italy wants. Does Italy want on every of these matters a referendum, and then we will see what the people there are doing? Because that is the consequence of self-determination. If you say this treaty is based on self-determination of nations, then there will be no territorial change.
That's not with the principle of self-determination is signed whether, as a country and for the population as a whole, it should ever be considered a solution.
Everyone gets the right to self-determine. Every little single tiny piece of land can just declare independence. It's not true, because in chapter 3, number 2, we are clearly defining it.
To the German delegation. If we write in Article 3.1, every nation has the right to self-determine its destiny, are you going to give us any territories without a referendum? Would you be so naive? No, you wouldn't. I don't know what your look on the world right now is, but
if you give the Germans this weapon, we are never going to reach a consensus ever.
So, number one, if the principle of self-determination does not entail any referendums, then what does it entail?
General principle from which we build further, and if you just think for a moment which persons in the world are going to decide whether this is a general situation or one with special circumstances, and we all know what's going to happen. So why not just put the principle of self-determination in the treaty? Thank you.
We would definitely sign up to a proportional army for each state based on different criteria, size, population, borders, as well as an agreement if, for example, Russia were to threaten our borders, we would seek the help of all of you to come and help us, because a small Hungarian army could not fend us alone.
For Austria, this plan is acceptable under one condition, since we believe that the United States of America had the best attitudes towards this crisis, and that their plan is the basis of this agreement. We would accept this proposal of the delegation of the United Kingdom if the United States of America make an alliance with states from the Central Powers and guarantee their territorial integrity in the case of attack of a third party.
We agree to have the principle of self-determination in the treaty, but in addition...
The new rules have created new dynamics between the delegations and inspired new ideas. After an intensive day of hard negotiating, all parties have agreed on new terms for a new peace, with some surprising results.
Hungary should promise they will let them free passage from here to here if they want to pass here.
Kind of territories like Dalmatia, which was Croatian, was given to Italy, and then I said, why should we stick to the ethnical and strictly to the ethnical things, because giving a corridor for Hungary would mean, I don't know, 100,000 Romanians, but giving the eastern Transylvania to Romania would mean 1.5 million Hungarians.
The Saarland and the Rhineland have become demilitarized zones for 50 years, and proceeds from the natural resources in these areas would actually go to France.
Tyrol is going to be under joint administration of Austria and Italy for 20 years. And after 20 years, there is going to be a referendum held in this area. But Austria must not have any military force within 40 kilometers around this area. Dalmatia is under the control of League of Nations for 15 years, and there is going to be a referendum whether they would like to join the Kingdom of Serbs or become independent. And Carniola is going to Kingdom of Serbs, but South Carniola goes to Italy.
We decided to make a referendum in Slovakia, which will be paid by the USA, to decide, the Slovakians should decide whether they want to remain with the Czech Republic as Czechoslovakia, or they want to be an independent country. If they say they want to be an independent country, in this case there will be a second referendum. In Slovakia there will be a referendum in Romania, and there will be a referendum also in the southern Slavic state, we can say Yugoslavia, and the referendum will be about joining Hungary with an economical confederation. So establishing an economical confederation, we can say where Romania, maybe Slovakia, and maybe Yugoslavia and Hungary are participating in it. Rijeka goes to Italy. And also there will be, I think will there be any referendum?
The delegations quickly realised that working out a lasting peace that is in everyone's interests is not an easy undertaking. The delegations have laid down a new long-term plan for a peaceful Europe, making several compromises which would have been unimaginable just a few days before. In the end, they were not debating the First World War, but how to achieve world peace.
I quite enjoyed the two signing ceremonies, because there you could actually see and feel that people were happy that they had reached a conclusion, and that's also part of it. It is hard work. Yeah, it's a good moment when then you can say, we're done. We have reached something. We have made a compromise.
You recognize this treaty was not as bad as it is told in Germany always, or as it is perceived in Germany, and the French have given up a lot of position. If you think from where we started.
Know the other party, what does the other party think. He knew what Romanians think about all this. He knew that for Romania, the First World War was a success. For Hungary, it was a drama, it was a tragedy.
The memory that we have in our heads, that is something that we can offer and show to our colleagues from Western Europe, as well as we can get their own perceptions, and that exchange of perceptions is very important for some kind of unbiased view.
The French were just urging justice, which means humiliate us as much as they can. The Italians seem to be a bit offside, and the other two center states were trying to save their skin, so to say. We're just all giving each other the blame for what happened, which is interesting to see how that goes.
What we should learn from 1919 is that accepting a loser of a war as a partner is the better solution than trying to be a harsh victor and trying to break your partner, your possible partner, especially if you have to deal with communists from the East.
After there was so many Romanians in Transylvania, we couldn't integrate them. You don't have to speak about borders. We are all in the same big union to use our chances here.
And peace doesn't exist by itself. You make hard work for it every day.
That's what politics is about, and what people sometimes forget, that it's hard work to reach a compromise, and it will probably never be a perfect solution. That's impossible. But it's a great achievement to actually reach agreement between, particularly in this case, between powers that were enemies for such a long time. If they manage to sit down together and reach agreement, that's a great achievement.